Hello, everyone. I am Brandon Raby. I am in the admissions department here at Mount St. Joseph University, and I am going to be facilitating our conversation today. And today we're going to be talking about the health professional advising and what to do when you are considering a career, well, first off in college and then afterwards a career in health professions. And we're going to go ahead and start off with introductions. So I would like to start off introducing a few of our professors, followed by Kate Marrero in our Career Center. So let's go ahead and start off with our professors first, whoever would like to introduce themselves, and then we'll go down the list.
I can jump in here. I'm Dr. Kelly Crow. This is my third year at the Mount, and I teach classes like anatomy and physiology, biotechnology new this year, biological psychology, a lot of words with bio in them, so I often say the wrong one. But I'm also the pre-med advisor at the Mount. So what that means is that when students are interested in going to med school, they meet with me several times a year. And we talk not only about how their classes are going and what career options they're interested in, but also the thing with pre-med is that there's a ton of work behind the scenes that needs to happen outside of the classroom. So you have to think about shadowing and you have to think about volunteering and leadership. And so I really help the students to navigate that entire extra set of things that they have to keep in mind to prepare for med school.
Awesome.
My name's Roxana Hawkins. Hi to you guys who are watching live and people who are watching later on. I'm an assistant professor of social work here at Mount St. Joe University, and I'm also the advisor for individuals who are seeking a master's of social work later on in their career. That also means that I see social work students, but it also means I see psychology majors, sociology majors, and anyone who's really interested in going into a career to explore mental health, behavioral health, or addictions. So whenever you see me on campus or anywhere that I am, I'm looking at classes where people are doing group facilitations or individual therapy skills, or even really concentrating in the areas of addiction, which are all a part of physical health. Our mental health impacts our body. And so we're all here trying to get to the same goal. And we just take care of that talk therapy and that mental health portion of the individual body.
And hello, I'm Dr. B.C. Charles Leescomb. I'm the department chair for exercise science and integrative health, and I'm also an athletic trainer. And I am the professional faculty advisor for our students in exercise science who may be interested in graduate study, but then I also am for all students on campus, those who are interested in pursuing graduate degrees in athletic training, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and dietetics, or becoming an RD. As the others have indicated, my interest and my role is to facilitate students as they work towards a graduate school application, kind of deciphering which graduate school best fits your career plans, and also making you as competitive as possible as an applicant and kind of guiding you through that process over the course of 4 years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Marrero, and I am the Health Professions Advising and Co-op Coordinator out of the Career Center at Mount St. Joseph University. And what that big, long title means is that I work on the sort of programming and background of what the faculty members are advising for. So where students see me, they see me early on to talk about what they're interested in. A lot of students in their first year may be interested in several different areas. So they'll work with me on identifying what they're interested in, and then I funnel them to their advisor. I run events for health professions advising based on whatever's going on in the field. And then I also keep a pulse of the changing world of graduate admissions. So when things like standardized testing change, or different application systems change, different interview styles come through, I try and make sure that our faculty are aware of that so that you are aware of that.
Great, thank you, everybody. So we're going to transition right into questions right away, but the first kind of question I want to ask is going to be dedicated straight to Kate. What is health profession advising, and why is it so important within the field of health professions?
Sure. So health professions advising for Mount students is additional support on top of your academic advising. So academic advising is going to help you figure out exactly what you need to finish your bachelor's degree, and health professions advising is additional support on top of that to identify what you need to do inside and outside of the classroom in order to be a strong candidate for a graduate program. So several schools, for example, physical therapy or physician assistant studies may have required working hours that you have to do, or what's called direct patient care hours. And then other programs like what Kelly was mentioning, Dr. Crow, they aren't exactly explicit about the number of hours that they want, but they expect you to have some kind of healthcare experience. And that's sort of a between the lines opportunity that you may not know about if you're just going into it without any support.
Great, thank you. We're going to go straight into kind of diving deeper into the health professions. When do most students make a decision about attending graduate school? And we'll go ahead and start off this one off with Dr. BC, Dr. Brian Charles Lipson.
Thank you, Brandon. So most students, when they arrive to an undergraduate degree, have some sense that they're interested in a health career. Some of them are very kind of singularly focused on a health career, like I want to become this profession, and they will kind of stick with that path. Others will come in with a defined goal, but then they're open to potential changes, whether it's because of how long it's going to take, or because they found a new interest and they were shadowing and they found something that was actually more interesting than what they thought. And then finally, there will be some that actually will come to understand that maybe a health career is really what I'm destined to do, even though I thought I couldn't do it because I didn't think I was ready for it, or maybe I wasn't smart enough, or I didn't have the background, or they recognize that there's a need and they can fill it. And so oftentimes what we find is students who have done well in the sciences typically kind of gravitate towards the health careers, but that doesn't have to be the case. It does help, obviously, to be, and it is kind of an expectation that you're going to spend a lot of time in the sciences, both social sciences and basic sciences and the humanities even, but it really depends on when the student kind of, something lights their fire, if you will.
Perfect, thank you. Kind of alluding to that and going into a little more details, Roxanne, would you say there's a certain timeline on when these students should be considering the graduate school?
So I think social work is a really interesting program where sometimes people come in knowing that they want to be a social worker, and sometimes we get students who thought they were going to be a teacher and was like, oh, I don't like kids as much as I thought, or they know they want to be a helper. Maybe they wanted to be a nurse and they figured out they didn't like blood, but they still have this heart for helping people. And so social workers come to us. Our students show up in multiple different areas. Unlike some of the other counterparts here, as far as like having the health professions, is social work and MSW program. You could come in as a BSW student, meaning that you have a bachelor's degree in social work, but we have tons of students who go on to get MSWs who do not have a degree in social work at the bachelor's level. Now that does change some things for you. When you have a BSW, most of the time you can enter into an advanced standing program and complete an MSW in 1 year. Myself, I have a degree in psychology. My undergrad is in psychology. So it took me 2 years to complete an MSW program because of the practicum hours, which are internship hours. I think the beautiful thing about social work is a student can come in and not come and talk to me about going and getting an MSW. They could wait really until that last year and then still have a really good competitive shot of getting into a regular, or what we call a standard standing, the 2-year program. And so those are things that students, there's a lot of flexibility with an MSW that can take you into all different type of health arenas, whether that be hospice care, whether that be doing some type of renal care as far as dialysis, or being a hospital social worker, or in a mental health unit. There are tons of things where we show up. The real question is, where are we not where do social workers show up? Well, everywhere. And so I think that for those things, even students who may be coming from one of the AT programs or the PT or the OT or even pre-med, and then all of a sudden this world of mental health opens up, they could even come in, give me about 5 months, and we could probably still get you into a really competitive program. And so I think those are those little caveats that are a little bit different for social work, because we even have people like myself who was out of school for a few years before I went back and got my MSW. So this isn't necessarily something that your first semester you have to know is your calling that you're walking into. Sometimes that flower doesn't bloom to that awakening that mental health and behavioral health is really where your passion is. So I think there's a little bit more flexibility of entering into an MSW program than there may be in what some of my counterparts have described.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question is going to go towards Dr. Crow. And Kelly, I have a question. You know, and a lot of high schoolers ask this question, or they hear this term a lot, but not everybody necessarily understands what it means, because it's kind of a college term that's used and tossed around very often. What are prerequisites, and how important are they towards getting ready for a health professions type of career?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially for pre-med. So basically, in order to apply for med school successfully, you have to have a certain set of classes that you've taken and that you've done well in. And the deal is that some of those classes require other classes before them. And so if a class requires a class to be passed before you can take it, then the class that you would have taken before is called a prerequisite. And so this becomes really important for pre-med, because in order to successfully apply to med school, you have to have taken biochemistry. And you have to have taken it in order to have a traditional application timeline. You have to have taken it in your junior year. But the prerequisites for biochemistry are 2 semesters of organic chemistry. And then the prerequisites for organic chemistry are 2 semesters of general chemistry. And that's where pre-med advising, I think, is really important, because I help my students to make sure that they're on the right path and getting the right timeline to get all of those prerequisites done in the right order at the right timeline, so that they're ready to rock and roll by the time it's time to submit a med school application.
Perfect, thank you. Kind of summing this up, and I know Roxana alluded to this in her answer a little bit, but Dr. BC, what happens if I was a college student and I change my mind about what type of graduate program I want to get involved with? What do I do? What are my next steps?
What I would say for a student who's questioning what their original plan was, or is considering maybe modifying their destination for a career, is to really have some conversations with your faculty advisor, having a conversation with someone who's familiar with the career path. So that may be for us, it's a health professions advisor. It could be doing some shadowing experiences with a professional, so that you actually have a conversation about, how long was it? How long did it take you to get through? What do you like about your job? What don't you like about your job? And is it worth it? Is it worth all of the time, energy, effort, cost to ultimately earn that credential and to be fulfilled in your employment? Students will be able to make choices, and they're able to make changes. I think that's one of the fallacies about coming into college, is that I have to stay with what I'm doing, and it's going to, and I'm going to get derailed if I make a change. It may take more time. There's that likelihood. It may actually be beneficial to you, though, because you're going to have a little bit more time to kind of mature as a learner. Graduate school is challenging. You want to have the stability of being able to manage that stress. And also, it allows you to find the right mix of courses those prerequisites that you might want to take at the same time because they balance out well, or maybe you want to avoid taking these two classes in the same semester, and because by doing that, you're going to overwhelm yourself. That's one of the things that you need to kind of consider, and that, wherever you are in that decision-making process, there's an academic plan that can get you there, and it's going to take the time to really match that plan to how you've done previously in your courses, what your skill sets are right now, and what you're willing to do to get moving towards that goal. I think too often students begin with this assumption that, well, I can only go so far because I'm just not skilled enough. Well, that may be true right now, but if you're willing to put in the time, effort, and energy, right, work with someone to help you, you can move towards those goals. Now, regrettably, there are times when if you've made multiple attempts at a course and it's just not connecting and you're not really kind of demonstrating those skills, you probably need to consider an alternate career plan. That's still going to be fulfilling, but maybe it's not going to match with how long you can be in school or how much you can afford to spend. And so we need to kind of find that right path and kind of and set your target.
If I could add on, I think this is when I talk with students in this situation, and students tend to feel like they're the only person going through this, and it is half of my meetings, honestly, especially with our students who are sophomore to junior age, where they're changing things up. And what I tell them is to talk to everybody. So talk to their trusted faculty members, talk to their health professions advisor, talk to me or their career advisor, because the way that our career center codes their advisors may not exactly be me, but it could be. A lot of it is exposure. There may be areas that you have never heard of, or sort of like what Roxana was saying, you may only have one vision of what social work is, when really social work runs the gamut. I think the same is true for nursing, that students may think if I'm not in the bachelor's degree, it's a non-option for me. And they may not even know that there are programs out there that are available to them that may be at a different pace, but would set them up to find all different kinds of opportunities. So I also suggest talking to people outside the university. If you are not happy with your shadowing options, don't say that specifically to the person you're shadowing, but ask them about different people that they work with in their hospital or in their area, and ask if you can set up an information interview with them. Talk to everyone, get their perspective. That's going to be your best option.
I actually want to jump in here too. This is a really interesting topic. But so I've had students go both directions, right? I've had students who started off pre-med and they wanted to be doctors, they wanted nothing else. And then as they started getting into the shadowing experiences, they realized it wasn't a good fit. And my philosophy with advising is that I want what's best for each student. I don't want all of my students to go to med school. I want my students to go to med school if that's a good fit for them. And so students may have this idea that they're going to disappoint their advisor or something if they don't stick with the same path, but I don't think that's true at all. All I want is for my students to find something that they're really into and to help them chase after it. And I've had students go the other way too. I've had specifically students who were on the PA track, the physician assistant track, and they start looking into med school and they're saying, hey, I think this is really interesting. I think this might be a really good fit. And so then my job is, and my goal is to transition them seamlessly into the pre-med track. So it's not really about sticking with one track no matter what. It's about experiencing different things and finding out what's a good fit for you and working hard towards that goal.
I would have to agree with what everybody is saying as well, because even when I think about mental health or behavioral health, social workers aren't the only ones providing those types of services. So we have licensed professional counselors, and then you also have psychologists. And the big question is always like, what's the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist? Well, one of them is an MD and one of them is not. And so even understanding what is it exactly in the state that you live in or the state that you plan to live in or practice in that a social worker can do that's different from a professional counselor, that's different from a psychologist. How are they serving the similar goal, but what's that real true difference? And it's not my goal, while I am biased and I think that social workers are the best in that spectrum, is what is it that you want to do, and making sure that you end up in a graduate program that fulfills whatever that need is. Is it that you want to thrive as a psychologist? Great. How do we steward you that direction, which would be very different than stewarding you into a mental health counseling program, which we also have people here to do that as well, or into an MSW program. Some of those programs have different levels of competitiveness. Some of them require GREs while others don't, depending on your GPA. And so always weighing out those cost benefit analysis of these different programs to make sure that we find the right fit for you is ultimately the goal. Because if we have successful students, that means that we're going to have higher quality client care in whatever spectrum you're performing in.
Great, thank you guys. Let's talk a little bit about Mount St. Joe and how Mount St. Joseph University, I know we have HPAC, and I'd like to kind of transcend over to Kate. What is HPAC? What does it stand for, and how does it help our students?
Yeah, so HPAC is an acronym that students are going to see in some of the information that they get about Mount St. Joseph University, and that stands for Health Profession Advising Committee. So the committee is made up of me and all of the advisors that work as faculty members in the different departments that work with different areas. So I kind of use Health Professions Advising, HPA, and HPAC interchangeably, which can be confusing for students. But I do my best to try and actually say the whole acronym so that you know what we're talking about. But we want to make sure that we are all on the same page, that that I, as the coordinator, understand what the College of Science is doing versus the School of Health Sciences. I want to know how people are processing different information with things that are going on in our current world, which has changed a lot of things. So I like that we are all on a committee because we can exchange information that will ultimately benefit all of the students.
Great. And then Kate, could you also just kind of list off a few at the top of your mind, just a few of the different offerings that are kind of fall under the umbrella of HPAC?
Sure. So HPAC technically is anything that is health related that requires a graduate degree. So the ones that we have represented here, physical therapy, athletic training, occupational therapy, registered dietitian if you're going in for the master's degree, master's of social work, or master's in counseling, or a PsyD in counseling, or if you're going on for med school, which if we had any students who are going into psychiatry, I would probably put them with Dr. Crow, with Kelly as their advisor, because they need to get into medical school first. But we would make sure that they are also working with our counseling advisor as well to get some experiences in that realm in the same kind of vein. Other ones that we have are graduate entry-level nursing, things like the MSN Magellan or an accelerated BSN program. We have genetic counseling, veterinary medicine, pre-dent. I'm trying to think of all the ones that we have students that are very active in. Physician assistant studies is pretty big on campus because we have a PA program at the Mount. I know I'm missing a lot, but really we will also tailor it to the student. So if a student has an interest that we have not worked with before, we will assign them an advisor. And by we, I mean me, I'll do that. And a lot of times I also will work with students to understand, they'll bring me things like, I would like to be the person who implants new devices into somebody's knee when their knee stops working. All right. And they may not have the language around exactly what that is. And I could talk them through, well, that could be an orthopedic surgeon. Or have you thought about the angle of being a physician assistant who specializes in orthopedics? Or have you thought about the physical therapy kind of angle, where are you working with them afterwards in using it? Or you may be interested in how they pay for that, which oftentimes is a social worker, depending on where their area is. So there are so many different levels within the specific things that they want to do. We will walk you through that.
I'd say that was a pretty good job listing. I know we have a lot of different opportunities. So
Brandon, can I just jump in? I did want to. We do have optometry. We have pharmacy. We also have
Speech language,
speech
public
language,
health, yep.
speech and language pathology, and public health. Oftentimes, public health is not, well, prior to March of 2020, public health really didn't get a lot of love. It just kind of happened in the background and only really became important when, oh, we have a hepatitis A outbreak because a restaurant really wasn't all that clean. Or we didn't have a whole lot of public health love when things were functioning well. But we have a lot of emphasis right now on epidemiology, like who is at risk for a disease and why is it happening and why is it spreading, right? So public health is definitely at the forefront right now, but so are all of the other health careers because of what we're seeing at how infectious disease is really kind of spanning the spectrum, and also how our health disparities are really being magnified and shining a light that it's affecting on so many different populations. So I just wanted to highlight that as well.
Yeah, one area that I've noticed ever since March 2020 and everything went down is contact tracing. People are like, what's a contact tracer? That is so interesting. And I'm like, that's epidemiology. Let me funnel you to the right person. And a lot of students will do that in several different areas. They might still be going to med school. They might still be following their MSW work, but they now have this sort of underlying, I know where I want to go with this degree. And that's really helpful in helping you pin stuff down.
And talking about the contact tracing, there was a lot of recruitment for social workers into contact tracing because of our skills in motivational interviewing, because of our skills in how, when you call someone and say you've been exposed to COVID, the increase in crisis that they may feel and how to do crisis de-escalation over the phone and those types of things. So our ability to have that interpersonal relationship, how do we talk to individuals, which is also something that seeps into the other professions, right? As I work with my partners at the Mount and they're telling me in a PT, AT, OT, all the T programs, oh, we're doing a section on motivational interviewing with our folks and how they talk to people about their health and understanding the stages of change. Well, that's a whole class that social workers get on how to use those skills. And so there's so much overlap and seeping in, like what we call bedside manner with doctors. That's how you talk to people well. And so that's a lot of with social work, what we're doing is training people to use those interpersonal skills to get people from step 1, 2, or 3. And so even in this COVID crisis, you saw this call out to the essential workers, which included social workers, into some of these roles because we have pre-existing skills that make us great candidates to work with high-risk clients, to have the cultural competency that we need to look at some of these health disparities and relate and connect on a different type of level to increase their motivation for change, to get tested, to follow through with recommendations once they're tested, and ultimately protect themselves and the community.
Great, thank you. And then I have kind of one last question. And if it wasn't evident, we are all passionate about our positions and our backgrounds. I want to hear from each of you, we'll start with Dr. Crow. Why are you passionate about the Mount and why do you work at Mount St. Joseph University?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the thing that I love most about the Mount is that I haven't met a single person who isn't trying to help. I remember when I interviewed at the Mount, I got turned around and I couldn't figure out where I was going. And I asked a student, just a random student in the hallway, and they were so helpful and so genuine. And I just felt that from the minute I walked on campus. And I feel like all the faculty are the same way. When I talk to other faculty members, we really care about our students and we really care about getting them to where they need to go. Everyone at the Mount loves teaching and we just really want to help our students. And it's that kind of environment that I think is really beneficial for students. It can be easy at some places to fall through the cracks, but at the Mount, I feel like there are a lot of resources and a lot of support and a lot of people who care and want to go on a limb for you and get you where you need to go. And that's what I really love about the Mount.
Great. Roxana?
So ditto to all of that. So for me, especially, I really enjoy the Mount, specifically with our program, because we have a night and weekend program. So our program specifically targets students who may be transitioning from community colleges into a four-year institution, individuals who are returning to finish that degree. And so that means that we get a very large breadth in our program of diversity in our program, and that we bend to help our students get to their goals. Whenever I think about my classroom, I think my biggest class has maybe been 10 students. And so when you talk about falling through the crack, I notice if you're not there. I notice and I email you. If you're not there, not because you're in trouble, you're not, but I want you to know that I look forward to seeing you. I want to hear about what's going on in your head and heart. And when you're not there, I miss hearing your thoughts, your opinions, and what it is that you have to contribute to the classroom experience. I always tell my students, my job is to coach you. I'm going to be there to celebrate your wins, and I'm going to walk next to you through some of your valleys, and we're going to get you to where you're going. And so I feel like at the Mount, we're willing to give we match whatever it is that you're giving, and we're going to cheerlead you all across your first graduation. And I want to know when you walk across the stage the second time, so that I can cheerlead you virtually in an email with a card whenever you get that graduate degree, because no matter where you go, once you cross that stage, you're one of ours. And that doesn't stop just because you're not physically on campus anymore.
Great. What about you, Kate?
So one of the things that we emphasize in the Career Center is small successes in order to build up to larger successes. And that's one of my favorite things. I think maybe I'm patting myself on the back, but I love our Career Center, and I think that we do a really good job engaging with students. And one of the ways that we sort of practice what we preach on that is that, so my job is with the health professions, but I am still out of the Career Center, which means that I work with our co-op students as well in the health sciences. And one of the ways that we sort of push this is in your first-ish year of pursuing a health profession, you have to emphasize the GPA. So you need a strong GPA out of the gate to really keep you going in an upward trajectory. And so when you end that fall semester, I send emails to my students who I've been working with and say, like, you did it. You did what I asked you. I told, like, don't add anything else on, just focus on a strong GPA. You're also, let's proverbial you, like, you're also a student athlete or something like that. You made it through your first year as an athlete, as a student with a strong GPA. Now we're heading into your sophomore year. We know you can take on a little bit more. So let's start working towards co-op, celebrating these small things to get you to carry heavier loads when maybe you didn't even realize that you were adding on new stuff. And we do this incrementally, and we do this, like Roxana said, standing next to you. That's what I love about it.
And finally, Dr. Lipscomb.
I would say that the thing I like the most about the Mount is the emphasis on experiential learning that blends what we are teaching in the classroom, the opportunities for students to use that knowledge in a variety of ways, whether that's with an in-class lab and service learning in the community, a co-op experience through the Career Center. I think that for students who want to engage in research, there are research opportunities depending on the department and the area of emphasis, both on and off campus with some of our employee partners. And then the ability to blend that with our values and our emphasis on the Sisters of Charity's mission to risk a caring response. I think that really does have, it is infused throughout the curriculum with the common good. And sometimes students might not see its relevance when you're in the weeds with it. But then what we do know is that our employers and our programs that take on our students, they report back to us. Your students get it. Your students are hardworking. They have a work ethic that that continues when they're employed. They understand how to work with people of a variety of types and coming from a variety of backgrounds, regardless of their previous understandings. And also, they're committed to change. And so, and as a result of that, they're really sought after as employees. They're sought after as applicants for graduate school.
Great. Well, on behalf of the 5 of us that you got to hear from today, we would like to thank you for tuning into our session. I hope that you have a better understanding of what health professions advising is, how it can help you in your college search process, how it can help you for your college years going into graduate school possibly, and then beyond that into your profession. If you would like to take a deeper dive into HPAC or any of the sessions, or if you would like to schedule a time to speak with any of the familiar faces from the session today, all you have to go to is online at msj.edu. And then in the search engine at the top right, you can search the program that you're looking for and learn all about us, or even check out our virtual 360 tour. Thanks again.